Joining me now to weigh in, Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino, and an MSNBC contributor. Noah Rothman and Eddie Glauder back with me. Eddie, are you surprised at all we're back in birtherism territory?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, the landscape hasn't changed. The toxicity of the landscape hasn't changed. Kamala Harris, after her strong performance, and particularly after her challenge towards Joe Biden around the issue of busing, kind of stoked the fire of these sorts of racial animus and racial resentment in interesting sorts of ways. So it's no surprise that she would experience it. I think I was very much appreciative. I was very much appreciative of the rest of the Democratic field just coming out immediately and condemning it, saying that this has no place in our politics.
Yeah, this isn't okay. Maria, the Morning Consult poll does show quite a surge for Harris. In your mind, how real is this? Do you see a path for her to grow on that momentum?
Absolutely. I think that when she stepped on that stage, she made it very clear that she wasn't running for number 2, but that she was running for top of the ticket. And if, the weeks leading up to this debate, there was a lot of rumors and people were asking her if she would be a good number 2 for Joe Biden. And she made clear that that's not what she was. And it gave her exposure. A lot of folks may have seen her cross-examined from her perch in the Senate in the different committees. But this was the very first time that she was able to insert herself in people's imagination that she could go toe-to-toe with the president. But you mentioned a little bit about the tweets. What was really interesting about the tweets, and I think this is where every single American needs to be very cautious, is that it was a tweet that came out of someone that had very little followers, and then a whole bunch of other people ended up tweeting the same thing almost verbatim. So there was a political scientist that was basically saying that it seemed like a very concerted effort, wondering if what we had was the very beginnings of an actual attack on bots. And that's why it was so important that the Democratic field came up so early. Last time when we had birtherisms in the last campaign, when it was Obama and Hillary, that other campaign, Hillary took a time for her to come out and say this was not what that was. And so it was very important for them to basically say we're holding the line and we're not going to actually have those kind of interferences in our conversations.
So the question.
I could see you wanting to jump in.
I'm dying in here because the question is, can Kamala Harris sustain this momentum? And there is momentum, and it was a great moment of political theater on that debate stage that night. But this is a very risky game for Kamala Harris to play. The implication that she is making, which all of us sentient people understand, is that your support for segregationists, your opposition to busing, we can charitably chalk that up to ignorance, but it's ignorance with a layer of racial hostility. And that's just not something that Democratic voters are going to believe. They're not going to believe that Barack Obama's vice president for 8 years harbors racial hostility. Second, she has
she did. The first thing she said was she does not believe that he's racist.
She's making a very concerted effort to say, I'm not saying what I'm saying, because it's a very difficult thing to say. And what she's done now is compel herself to embrace busing. She's now come out in support of forced busing, which we don't have any polling on in this century because it's really a dead political issue. But it was among the most unpopular, most ineffective, counterproductive, failure on its own merits proposal that she has now embraced.
Let's be very clear. Go ahead, Maria. I'm sorry.
No, I think what Harris was actually trying to say is, like, look, you have to be very careful. What she was actually trying to unpack from him was the zinger, was that states cannot be responsible for basically legislating and creating these issues when it comes to race, because oftentimes local officials and states themselves have been on the wrong side of history. And that was the point that she was trying to make, and that is very hard to argue because it is the reason why we have the Voting Rights Act. It is the reason why we actually had to have Brown versus the Board of Education. So she unpacked it beautifully, and people are trying to say that it was because of busing. It had nothing to do with busing.
But
it had everything to do with who is legislating. That's where it has everything to do with who's legislating.
Busing, which accelerated geographic sorting and disenfranchised African American students.
The thing that you constantly do this, no. The reason why
I do explain myself. Yes, I have a habit of doing that.
The reason why busing accelerated is because white communities did not want black kids to come to their schools. The reason,
you're not giving proper play to the African Americans who also rejected this.
Of course, they rejected the policy because they wanted their schools to be better resourced. They didn't want their kids to go into dens of hatred. But when you look at what happened in Boston, when you look at what happened in Pontiac, when you look at riots by white communities because black kids are trying to come to their schools, let's be very clear. Busing had to be used as an option because it was 20 years after Brown v. Board.
It was a disastrous failure.
So part of what I want you to do first, part of what I want you to do first is to understand we both can agree.
That's a bad policy.
We both can agree busing failed.
Sorry.
But we need to understand why it failed.
Because you're telling the parents that they no longer have control over their own education of their students. If you want to tell parents that they shouldn't have control
No, if you want to tell white parents that you can, if you want to tell white communities and white parents that you can hoard the resources of a good education, if you want to hold on to that view, then you need to take the hits.
Intensified and accelerated these trends, and now Kamala Harris has said, "I support that."
No,
she did not. And I think that's where you guys have to pivot.
Hold on.
That's not what she was saying.
And it's a very critical conversation. Having said that, in the context of what we're looking at today, which is numbers that are moving, right, in Kamala Harris's favor. We're going to get some more money reports later today, although she already reported she did very well in the first 24 hours. Are these conversations that impact that are important to the political side of that? Or, as some people have suggested, a lot of the conversation that happened on that stage was a left conversation that will hurt?
No, I understand the question, Chris. I think this is the issue. To be honest with you, and I love Noah, Democrats shouldn't worry about Noah. We shouldn't care about what he thinks. What we need to do is to understand how we can rebuild what was called the Obama coalition and expand the electorate. You're not going to do that by trying to split, by trying to appeal to Reagan Democrats that we've lost so long ago. What we need to do is to put forward bold, courageous vision for the country moving forward and call out not just simply the loud racists, but those who have been complicit in maintaining systems of inequality by offering these sorts of arguments.
This is not a hermetically sealed conversation. Centrist voters who you need in November are listening. And if you tell them that you have to sacrifice your child's education now, or else you're racist, they're going to drag themselves over.
That's what you call these folk in New York? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.